a reusable water bottle instead.
Why should I care? What difference does it make in the end?
Actually, it does matter. This bottle is made out of a synthetic polymer called polyethylene terephthalate, or PET. PET forms through a condensation polymerization reaction between ethylene glycol and terephthalic acid, creating long chains connected by ester bonds. These repeating units form a macromolecule with strong covalent bonds along its backbone. That structure makes plastic lightweight, durable, and resistant to degradation. And that durability is exactly why it becomes a problem.
Plastics don't biodegrade like organic materials. Instead, they fragment. Ultraviolet radiation from sunlight initiates photodegradation, generating free radicals along the polymer chain. These radicals trigger oxidative chain scission, reducing the polymer's molecular weight. As the chains become shorter, the material becomes brittle and fractures. Mechanical forces, like waves and abrasion, accelerate this breakdown. When fragments become smaller than 5 millimeters, they're classified as microplastics. But chemically, they're still polymers, just shorter chains. And as particle size decreases, the surface area to volume ratio increases, allowing microplastics to interact more easily with pollutants and biological systems. Small particles, but a huge impact. Synthetic plastics became widespread in the early 20th century with materials like bakelite. Bakelite, which was invented in 1907 by Belgian-American chemist Leo Baekeland and patented in 1909, is the first synthetic thermosetting plastic, created by heating phenol and formaldehyde. It developed as a synthetic substitute for expensive shellac, aiming to create a versatile, heat-resistant molding material. After World War II, advances in petrochemical refining enabled large-scale production of polymers derived from petroleum. Small hydrocarbons like ethylene were polymerized into materials such as polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene, and PET. These polymers are largely nonpolar hydrocarbons chains, making them hydrophobic and resistant to microbial enzymatic attack. Unlike natural polymers such as cellulose, synthetic plastics lack easily degradable functional groups. As a result, instead of fully mineralizing into carbon dioxide and water, plastics persist for decades, fragmenting into microplastics.
So where do all these plastics end up? Well, some of them end up in landfills. The first recycling plant didn't open up until 1972, nearly 65 years after the invention of plastics. But in the meantime, they were tossed in the trash, left in the street, and swept up by the ocean. While we can tell the difference between a macro and a chunk of plastic, an albatross does not. A 2020 study by Society for Conservation Biology found that up to 17.5% of deaths in albatrosses are a result of plastic. With nearly 73% of species of albatrosses facing extinction, that figure is quite significant. And it's not only birds, all marine life is being affected. Sea turtles, seals, whales, even coral reefs. Two separate studies, one in 2023 and one in 2018, found that eating just a handful of plastics can be fatal for marine life. It also suffocates and kills corals, sponges, and invertebrates. And it's easy to see how much plastic is in the ocean. We have an entire island of trash. It's been dubbed the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And this is just a fragment of it. Located halfway between California and Hawaii, it is the largest out of the 5 offshore plastic accumulation zones in the world. When plastics aren't biodegradable, it accumulates and gets bigger and bigger. This results in plastics breaking into tinier and tinier pieces, eventually becoming microplastics. And these are everywhere, even in the deep ocean. Back in 2019, the Monterey Bay Aquarium research paired up with the Scripps Institution of Oceanography and found that 1/3 of lancetfish have plastic in them. These are found in the mesopelagic zone, or twilight zone, and that has a depth of 660 feet to 3,300 feet. So how do these microplastics affect us? Well, not much is known about the lasting effects of microplastics on the human body. Studies in animals and human cells suggest that microplastic exposure can be linked to cancer, heart attacks, reproductive problems, and potentially tens of other issues. One of the first papers to examine the risk of microplastics in humans studied patients undergoing surgery to remove plaque from their arteries. More than 2 years later, after the procedure, those who had microplastics in their plaque had a higher risk of heart attack, stroke, and death than those who didn't. Research on microplastics is just beginning. Some studies can take years and years of research, and we may not know the negative effects of plastics on the human body for years to come. One thing is for certain, we need to take better care of our environment, or else they may end up replacing our neighbors.
In many parts of the world, especially in developing countries, for example, Africa, plastic waste builds up in streets, rivers, and open areas because waste management are limited. So to reduce the amount of trash, some people burn plastic. However, burning plastics releases toxic gases that can enter through your nose and then harm the lungs and increase the risk of respiratory disease. In addition, tiny pieces of plastic called microplastic that can enter through the drinking water and food, creating long-term health risks. So plastic pollution is not only an environmental problem, but also a serious public health concern around the world.
Oh my god, is that a mushroom? Is it edible? Well, I don't know. Can it degrade plastic? Of course not. Wait, but actually, can it?
Yes, there have been recent studies about fungi and bacteria degrading plastic. How may you ask? According to a recent study, these microorganisms can depolymerize polymers by producing extracellular enzymes and free radicals that cleave polymers into smaller chains. The smaller chains that are able to be polymerized into monomers, those can cross the semi-permeable membrane for microbial uptake. These monomers are then mineralized into CO2, H2O, and CH4, contributing to energy production and biomass. One specific microorganism responsible for this mechanism would be the ideonylcyclinases, as they are highly efficient in hydrolyzing PET with enzymes like PETase and MHETase. So PETase destabilizes the PET molecules by catalyzing hydrolysis of ester bonds within the polymer. During this process, PET is broken down into intermediate products, including the dimer, bis 2-hydroxyethyl terephthalate, or BHET, and the monomer, as shown here, 2-hydroxyethyl terephthalic acid, MHET, and then MHETase hydrolyzes MHET into terephthalic acid and ethylene glycol. Collectively, these processes highlight the role of microbial activity in the breakdown and mineralization of plastic polymers.
Wow, I didn't realize how much harm one piece of plastic could cause.